August 17th marked 100 days since President Moon Jae-in took office. The first 100 days of a president's term are usually considered the best time to push his agenda forward. For President Moon, that period has been dominated by efforts to eradicate what he called deep-rooted evils in society. So what policies have been put in place and what needs to be done to ensure their success? That's the topic we're exploring on this week's Upfront.
President Moon Jae-in has celebrated his first 100 days in office. He assumed presidency after a snap election which was triggered by Korea's first ever presidential impeachment.
지금 제 머리는 통합과 공존의 새로운 세상을 열어갈 청사진으로 가득 차 있습니다.
Since his inauguration, where he stressed unity, communication, and reform, President Moon has made a series of unprecedented moves, from announcing his picks for key cabinet positions to inviting public sector workers to address their grievances to him. Moon's approval ratings remained strong in the 70s and 80s. The high approval rating gave him the fuel he needed to push his policy initiatives, including a hike in the minimum wage to carry out the government's income-led growth strategy. Other initiatives included a blind screening process for hiring new employees in the public sector.
소득 주도 성장을 통해 사람 중심의 국민 성장 시대를 여는 대전환점이 될 것입니다.
So how do Koreans rate the president 100 days in, and what do they expect from him during the remainder of his term?
네, 우선 100일 동안 개혁적이고 신선한 모습을 많이 보아서 굉장히 좋은 모습이었고,
문재인 정부가 들어서고 소방청 독립이나 아니면은 뭐 세월호 그런 거 등 좀 새로운 혁신에 대해서 많이 추구했던 것 같고요.
지금 특히 대북 문제가 좀 많이 이슈가 되고 있는데 국민들에게 좀 소통해 주시고 잘 좀 대처해 줬으면 하는 좀 바람이 조금 있습니다.
취약 계층이나 소외 계층, 어린이 또 장애인 계층도 많이 복지 정책이나 이런 쪽에 정책을 좀 집행을 했으면 좋겠습니다.
특유의 대통령의 권위적인 모습이 아니라 약간 서민의 대통령으로서 그런 친근감 있는 모습이 가장 인상 깊게 깊었고, 앞으로도 이런 방향으로 나갔으면 전 좋겠다고 생각하고 있습니다.
Korea still faces a myriad of issues. What needs to be done to make it a better country to live in? On this week's Upfront, we take a close look at the first 100 days of Moon's presidency and discuss policy directions that can help make the new administration a success.
For today's discussion, we're joined by two experts. Sung Gul Hong, professor in the School of Public Administration and Public Policy at Kookmin University, and Kim Ji-yoon, research fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, how would you evaluate President Moon Jae-in's first 100 days in office overall?
Well, he demonstrates actually a very kind and very people-like posture for the which is very contrasting with the former president, and that makes him got over 70% of presidential support. But I think on the matter of policy issues, there are many difficult issues and big issues he raises, but it has a lot of criticisms and confrontation within the general public as well as many specialists on policies. So for the 100 days, I think it's kind of incomplete. We have to wait until another years, but we have a lot of things to discuss and to talk.
Yes, we'll talk about some of them in more detail. He certainly does prove himself to be a good communicator, doesn't he?
He did. I agree with Professor Hong. What people really wanted for a long time is somebody you can talk to, or the president who is not out of touch. And he really nailed down it. And he proved that he's a person who can communicate and talk to people. And that's probably why he's maintaining really high approval ratings so far. I remember the 78% of approval rating, the last week released by Gallup poll. And he worked hard, I think, and people really received it pretty well. And then I also agree with Professor Hong. There's a lot of confrontations, issues, and he was not backing up and facing those issues, and it may cause a lot of conflicts and also the fissure among the public and the people and the politicians. But it's too premature to evaluate anything. We have to see and how it turns out.
Well, since his campaigning days, President Moon has stressed his priority on eradicating what he called deep-rooted evils in society. And a lot of the efforts he's made so far have been centered around that effort. But some people are concerned that they might be viewed as political retaliation or going against the spirit of national unity. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what is called the deep-rooted evil. Well, I think every society, every country has a similar, that kind of similar things. But the problem is that his government is focusing the people instead of the institutions or customs or some kind of accumulated things within society. So that's why he and his people always emphasizes those who were involved in, say, for instance, Lee Myung-bak governments and Park Geun-hye governments. So that's what is called the deep-rooted evil. Then at least I think half of the people cannot agree with that, because we can agree with that we have lots of deep-rooted evils, and this can be eradicated, it should be eradicated to be one of the major advanced countries. That I agree. But if that deep-rooted evils are only limited to the past two governments and not for, say, for example, Kim Dae-jung governments or not in Roh Moo-hyun governments, then we cannot agree with that. And that's why that kind of critics voluntarily comes out. So as long as these governments put much emphasis on eradicating the people instead of institutions or bad laws and bad customs, then I think that kind of critics will be increasing gradually. Okay.
To be exact, deep-rooted evil is not the term that he created. It was created actually the previous president, Ms. Park Geun-hye. Well, sometimes the people symbolize the institution. Sometimes the institution was led by the people. So maybe some people feel like, well, this is only limited to those two previous government people. But I don't know, we have to see how it goes out and turns out. But the most important thing is the eradicating deep-rooted evil. I don't really like the term, but that is actually the demand from the people, because people are really sick and tired of this country, and the society strongly feel that the country is not going into the right direction. So it's more like it's the public demand. And secondly, I think, well, without eradicating or eliminating all those past wrongdoings, it can be a people, it can be institution, and only talking about the reconciliation or national unity is not really the reconciliation. It is actually simply the cover-up. So I think it is very important for President Moon Jae-in to leave the really nice, good casework, so that the following government can, have an example, good example.
Well, one of the areas that, where the deep-rooted evils are kind of proliferated is in the area of politics, political communities, National Assembly, okay? And he and his parties did the same thing that what the major party, the former major party, did. And they always emphasize that these are the deep-rooted evils in the area of politics. And then they are the part of the what is called the deep-rooted evils, right? But they always criticize and they always argue, arguing that they are right and the other parties are wrong. That's, people cannot agree. And that's why I'm saying that if you are talking about deep-rooted evils and try to eradicate them, then you have to emphasize the whole institutions and the whole behavior, no matter what is you yourself cannot be an exception. You are part of that deep-rooted evils. Without agreeing, without recognizing it, that eradicating jobs cannot be successful because you cannot get bring about the approval from the opposition parties.
Well, by deep-rooted evil, we are talking about corrupt or irregular practices that are prevalent around society. Besides wiping out the so-called deep-rooted evil, President Moon has also vowed to wipe out the so-called 갑질 culture, whereby people in power positions abuse their power, become bullies and reign over other weaker people. Why do you think this issue has come to the forefront in recent months?
Well, I don't really think it came to the fore recent months. I mean, we all remember what happened, the Korean Air and, the peanut U-turn thing. So it's been in the culture, in the society. And I think it's very fortunate that people start to stand up and raise up the issue. Recently, we probably heard that one of the generals and his wife did maltreated one of the soldiers. And well, before, I think even if you were being taken advantage of, you probably just say that, well, there's nothing I can do, and very demoralized that nobody is going to listen to me. But by the president saying that or recognizing that, and he is a very adamant attitude towards these kind of behaviors, it actually gives the courage to the people to stand up, and I think it's very fortunate. And then also the consequences for those behaviors follows. By showing some examples like that, it gives the people, to be courageous enough to stand up and then say that, of course, not every time, but sometimes my voice can be heard. And I think it's a really good and important foundation of democracy.
Now, President Moon's economic policies are concentrated on income-led growth, whereby job creation leads to higher household income, which in turn leads to the growth of the overall economy. Do you think this new paradigm could actually work?
Well, we have to wait and see whether it's going to work or not. Actually, in the whole world, I haven't heard of anything that income-led growth has been so successful. So this is some kind of risk businesses that they are undertaking, but I think it's worth a try because so far we have uneven growth strategy. Okay, we have undertaken that uneven growth strategy, and that's why what is called the big companies, chaebols, have been enlisted. Say, for example, the 500 list. There are not many companies from former developing countries are listed in the Fortune 500 list, except China, because China is because of the sheer size, right? But with less than, like about 50 million population, I think Korea is the only one country have that many big companies in the list. The key issue here is that, okay, it's about time to redistribute and make it some kind of even growth. And therefore people can maintain a good quality of life. And so in that sense, income-led growth strategy may be worth to try. But I think, for my personal opinion, I think it's too fast in terms of, put some targets within just 5 years, reaching those targets within 5 years, redistributing and everything. Then what if after 5 years, can we maintain and sustain that kind of policies and also the whole the economic base, growth base after 5 years? That's, I doubt it, and many other people outside the governments also have doubts, strong doubts. And so I think we have to wait and see, but I sincerely hope that Moon Jae-in government should listen to the opposition, the opposite opinion on that matter.
Do you think chaebol reform should happen first so that we can achieve a balanced growth throughout the economy?
Well, it may have different views, but if you are talking about the reform in terms of malpractices, yeah, that's right. But if you are talking about reform and therefore diminishing or decreasing their competitiveness in the global markets. I think that we have to think about twice, because creating jobs and maintaining competitiveness is one of the big issues. And also it's good for the income-led growth. So if you are regulating and what is called the reforming the chaebols, and by doing so, if you can, it can reduce the job creation and it can reduce the competitiveness, then something is wrong with that. So I think we have to be very careful about that.
Dr. Kim, what are your thoughts on the income-led growth strategy?
That's very controversial, I have to say, and very debatable. I don't really think it's the idea that came out right front of the Moon Jae-in government inaugurated. I mean, he had a thought about the income-led or wage-led growth strategy a long time before. And he's saying that, or his people are saying that, well, there's an example of Obama presidency, and then under his presidency, the U.S. was following the income or wage-driven growth strategy, and Abenomics under the Prime Minister Abe can be also considered one of them. It is debatable. It's arguably they are saying it. The problem is, well, I mean, although the U.S. economy have improved, of course, and Japan has gotten out of the long recession, but there's still a problem within the economies. For example, like income inequality is widened in the U.S. and Japan. The Abenomics always, the economists have casted a doubt on the Abenomics. So it's the question's unanswered yet. But more importantly, I think it shows that where the Moon government has an emphasis in terms of economy is more emphasizing on the redistribution of wealth by saying that income-led growth strategy, because basically it works like that. So there's more income for the people, and people get to have more disposable income. So people spend the income, and they are spending and they're shopping out, and the producers are stimulated, so more production. So it goes in that way, the cycle. Is it working out? I don't know. I mean, as I said, there's two different aspects of the result. So I agree with the Professor Hong. It's worth a try, a good experiment, and it shows that where the Moon Jae-in government economic policy is going to, whether or not it's successful, we have to see. I mean, it's in the long term, particularly.
Well, let me very short. Both the United States and Japan have their own currency as a global currency, like the dollar and yen, but Korea is so different. Okay, so they can get a policy like income-led, and by printing out dollars and yen, still they can manage the level, the inflation rates. But in Korea, things are totally different. If you try to increase income, the Korean governments, then it's very likely to have high inflation. So the income increase was just canceled out within just some years. So that's one of the big issues. And also the second issue is that income increase have to be driven by the private companies, the corporate, instead of the government. But this government is trying to increase the income that's the lowest income
minimum
level.
wage.
Yeah, minimum wage level is so fast. And also the government would like to create jobs in the governments and public sector. And that's another issue that we have to discuss.
Well, yes, those things, in fact, are a major part of President Moon's income-led growth policies, the minimum wage hike and blind screening for hiring public sector workers. These issues have been quite contentious issues as well. What is your position on these issues?
Well, it is contentious because people have to pay more taxes. Because if the number of public employees increase tremendously, then somebody have to pay their salaries, right? And the Moon Jae-in government is now focusing on high-income people only. But high-income people or high-income companies, corporations, are not so big in terms of their tax bases. So you have to, I mean, the governments in the long run have to persuade the people that the whole people, the whole tax level, and the whole what is called the burden of the peoples, but have to be increased at least at the average level of the OECD countries. Then it's going to be very problematic. And also, as a second point, the number of public employees increases. Then you have to see that they are working at least 30 years in the governments, and after retiring, they have pensions, which is very high, and also that's another burden for the people. So everything goes on, concentrated on what? Tax, or who's going to pay that? And the young generations now, the number of young people are decreasing over time.
Well, minimum wage is always a hotly debated issue.
Yeah.
But if you look at the trend in the advanced country, they are actually going into the direction of increasing it. The US and other European countries, and so we are in the line. The thing is, and then also the public has a consensus that we have to increase the minimum wage. But always the problem is when and how much. So there's always different ideas about that.
And there's always going to be a burden on the part of employers.
Right, so that's the issue. Well, it is true that those not the big corporations, but the small business owners will be hit by this. But also there's the the argument that, well, they are not always hit because by maintaining higher minimum wage, sometimes better quality workers can sustain the job and stay longer and the low turnover rate, so it's not always bad. So it is still arguable. And also in terms of the blind screening, I don't know, I am quite an outright proponent of it, actually.
Okay.
I saw the news report that the students, college students, like in so-called Sky, the good colleges, they're saying that it's so unfair because they study so hard, they worked really hard to get into that college, and now it's all useless. I don't really understand why they're saying it. I mean, working hard during the high school period and then getting into the good school and good, nice college diploma, it doesn't have to be a carte blanche to get a good job. I mean, you have to work hard during your college days as well. And also, there should be another chance for those who didn't really make a good college, but for another step. And also, the second of all, they are misunderstanding the whole purpose of the colleges and universities. This is not a job training institution. This is the place that you have to learn and get a good quality of education. And then think about the future, think about the country, think about the philosophy which will lead, not just to yourself, but the whole society and community.
Well, it's kind of strange for me because this is liberal democracy, and recruiting people from the private companies is something that is their own strategies to select the people who are the most beneficial to their own organizations and companies, whatever. Okay, but the people, the government says, okay, you guys, please don't do that. I mean, just blind view it. If the blind screening is the best strategy for them, they will do it. If it's not, they will not do it. So I think it should be left over to the private decision.
So that's probably why the government is limiting to the public works. The private sector, I don't really think the law can pass it. Yeah, blind screening.
So last word of advice, what do you think needs to be done to ensure the success of the Moon administration and its policy?
I think these governments for the past 100 days, it seems to me that there's a high danger that the groupthink syndrome can be, can come out from the government decisions. So the only, if I can make only one advice, please have somebody who can say something different views and some objections on anything that presidents have think about, and then be careful about listening those opposite opinions.
So you think the president should listen more to diverse opinions?
Right.
Okay. Dr. Kim?
The high approval rating shows that, okay, we confirm it and we approve the direction because it's too early to say anything about the result. So the Moon government for the past 100 days just laid down the groundwork. and the people liked it, and it shows the approval rating. And I think the real journey starts from here. Now the really important, difficult homework left for the Moon government. So you got all the plans laid out to the people, and it was confirmed. And then how we are going to achieve it, and that's the homework, real work for the Moon government has to do for the next 4 and 5 years.
Yes, President Moon Jae-in came into office without a transition period following a snap election, and his first 100 days have been a whirlwind. No doubt the coming months will prove to be quite critical to the efforts of the Moon administration to address a lot of these pending issues. Well, thank you very much, Professor Hong and Dr. Kim, for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
That's all for this week. Upfront will be back next week. Thanks for watching.